If you're past your 60th year, you've likely dedicated a significant portion of your life to diligent work, bringing up a family, looking after others, and attending to all that was required. Now, as you enter this subsequent phase, whether you term it retirement, a period of reinvention, or simply your own time, a profound shift begins to occur. You start to grasp that life is less about accumulating more and more about making superior choices. Yet, there's a reality that often goes unmentioned. Frequently, enhancing your life involves relinquishing things, not by adding to your burdens, but by removing items from your load, the routines, convictions, and stresses that have ceased to benefit you. Here, we will delve into 9 aspects you might want to consider releasing after turning 60. This isn't because of any missteps on your part, but because you are entitled to experience greater happiness, tranquility, and liberation. These are insights gathered from over a decade of engaging with individuals much like yourself, people in their 60s, 70s, 80s, and even older, who have illuminated what it truly means to live a fulfilling life. The final point, in particular, could reshape your perspective entirely. Let's commence. First, cease accumulating savings driven by apprehension. This is the initial item to discard after 60. Stop saving motivated by fear. This might sound peculiar initially. After all, putting money aside is a practice instilled in many of us from a young age. Save for unforeseen difficulties. Save for your later years. Save merely as a precaution. For a large part of your existence, this approach has likely been advantageous. However, at a certain juncture, particularly after 60, saving primarily from fear can begin to impede you. Allow me to clarify. The objective of saving funds is to secure your well-being in the future. It's an instrument. It's a method to get ready for the existence you aspire to lead down the line. But what occurs when down the line has arrived? What takes place when you've amassed sufficient savings? When your monetary requirements are met, yet you remain hesitant to spend even a small amount. I've observed this repeatedly. I once encountered a gentleman with over $2 million in his pension funds. He was free of debt, owned his home outright, and possessed more than enough to support him for the remainder of his days. Nevertheless, whenever his spouse proposed a vacation, acquiring a camper, or even dining out at a fine restaurant, he would become anxious. He'd express concerns like, "What if an emergency arises? What if we require that money later?" I gently posed to him, "What if you never utilize it? What if later doesn't unfold as you anticipate?" That inquiry resonated with him, and perhaps it resonates with you as well. Saving money is vital, but eventually you must have confidence in the life you've constructed. You need to grant yourself the liberty to relish it, to embark on that journey, to purchase that present, to forge that memory. Not impulsively, not without consideration, but without remorse. If you've planned prudently and your fundamental necessities are addressed, the funds you've set aside are not solely for crises. They are for experiencing life. They are for fostering connections. They are for joy. So today, I wish to propose this change in viewpoint. Instead of pondering, "What if I deplete my funds?" begin to ask, "What is valuable enough to spend on while I am still able?" Your moment is now, not at some indeterminate future time, not eventually. Now. Second, discontinue spending on what fails to bring you happiness. The second item to release after reaching 60 is this. Stop allocating money to things that don't provide you with joy. Now that you've permitted yourself to spend, ensure your expenditures are directed towards the appropriate things. Too frequently, we get caught in routines. We acquire items due to habit, guilt, or a sense of duty. We attempt to maintain a certain image or satisfy others, or occupy some void we haven't paused to identify. But if you halt and genuinely observe, how much of your expenditure truly contributes to your happiness? I once conversed with a woman in her early 70s. She shared that she used to allocate thousands of dollars annually to apparel she never put on, presents she felt obliged to give, and devices she purchased because they were discounted. Yet, the one expenditure that stood out most in her memory was a $600 airline ticket to surprise her sister for her birthday. They shared laughter, tears, and stayed awake late, reminiscing. That weekend held more significance for her than all those shopping excursions combined. That illustrates the distinction between mere spending and spending wisely. After 60, your finances should correspond with your most cherished values. Perhaps that's travel. Perhaps it's contributing to your grandchildren's education. Perhaps it's regular dinners with companions, or that new orthopedic recliner that alleviates your back discomfort. Whatever it may be, spend on that. Release the items that feel burdensome, trivial, or impulsive. Let go of spending driven by guilt or apprehension, or the compulsion to impress. You are not obligated to justify to anyone how you opt to enjoy your existence. And bear in mind, joy isn't invariably tied to a monetary sum. At times, the most valuable moments are the most straightforward ones. Relaxing on the veranda with a loved one, composing a handwritten note, or strolling in nature without your mobile device. So before you spend, inquire of yourself. Is this facilitating the life I desire? Or is it merely a distraction? Spend purposefully. Spend with conviction. Because the aim isn't to possess less or more. It's to have significance. Third, cease exchanging your time for money, unless it continues to provide you with meaning. The third aspect to let go of after 60 is this. Stop bartering your time for financial gain, unless it still imbues your life with purpose. For the majority of your life, time and money have been intrinsically linked. You labored for a salary. You made your livelihood by being present, investing the hours, performing the work, even when it was challenging, even when it went unappreciated. And that was essential. It was the means by which you constructed your life. But now you find yourself in a distinct phase. And in this phase, time is your most precious asset. Inquire of yourself frankly. Are you continuing to work because you derive pleasure from it? Or is it because you're apprehensive about stopping? Does your occupation offer you a sense of purpose? Or does it merely serve to keep you occupied? I am not suggesting you should enter retirement simply upon reaching 60. If you still find fulfillment in your work, if it provides you with vitality, routine, and social interaction, by all means continue. But engage in it as a conscious decision, not out of ingrained behavior or fear. A man I was acquainted with had served as a high school educator for over 30 years. When he reached 62, acquaintances repeatedly asked him, "When do you plan to retire?" His response was straightforward. "When I no longer love it." Consequently, he carried on teaching until he was 67. Then one morning he awoke and sensed it. The time had come, and he departed with serenity in his heart, not remorse. That is what I aspire for you. However, I also observe the converse. Individuals who remain in occupations they find unenjoyable, merely because they are uncertain of their identity without that professional role. People who are fearful of decelerating because they have never been granted the liberty to simply exist. Herein lies the truth. You can invariably acquire more money, but you can never acquire more time. Once today has passed, it is irretrievable, and no amount of money can repurchase it. So if your work continues to gratify you, proceed with a sense of pride. But if it depletes you, if it prevents you from living the life you aspire to, it might be time to relinquish it. You have exchanged time for money for a sufficient duration. Now is the moment to exchange time for meaning. Fourth, stop postponing the experiences you've always desired. The fourth thing to release after the age of 60 is this. Cease deferring the experiences you've consistently longed for. How frequently have you declared, "I'll embark on that journey someday. I'll acquire that skill next year. I'll commence that adventure when circumstances are more settled." But here is the stark reality. Someday isn't a date on the calendar, and for a multitude of individuals, someday never materializes. I recall a conversation with a couple who had harbored dreams of traversing the country in a classic Airstream travel trailer. They possessed the financial means. They possessed the time. Yet, year after year, they continued to say, "Next summer." Then, one winter, the husband experienced a health issue. It wasn't life-altering, but it was significant enough to make them reflect. And that was the juncture at which they understood. They had been awaiting an authorization that would never be granted. So they packed their belongings, embarked on their journey, and 6 months later, they informed me it was the most rewarding decision they had ever made. Not because every day was flawless, but because they finally acted upon their dream. That is the impact of taking initiative now. So I wish to ask you, what is something you have been delaying? A voyage, a pastime, a reunion with an old acquaintance? A correspondence you continually intend to compose? Why not now? You don't need to await retirement to begin living. You don't require everything to be ideal. And you don't need anyone else's approval. Because here is something most individuals don't grasp until it's excessively late. Work can serve as a pretext. Routine can serve as a pretext. Even meticulous planning can serve as a pretext. Underlying the procrastination, there is often apprehension, fear of transformation, fear of undertaking something novel, fear of finally prioritizing oneself. But what if this year you relinquish procrastination? What if you granted yourself permission to commence living presently? Not in 5 years, not when the circumstances are opportune, but now. You are not excessively old. It is not excessively late. And you are permitted to create memories that feel extraordinary. Irrespective of your age, the world remains replete with marvels. You simply need to consent. Fifth, stop disregarding your well-being. The fifth item to let go of after reaching 60 is this: cease neglecting your health. Now, I wish to express this with affection, because I recognize this can be a delicate subject. But it is one we must address. Many people conceptualize retirement in terms of the number of years they might have remaining: 15 years, 25 years, perhaps longer. But the more pertinent question is this: how many healthy years do you have left? Because without your health, genuine, enduring health, it doesn't matter how much money is in your bank account. It doesn't matter how many journeys you've arranged or how splendid your retirement residence is. If you lack the vitality or capacity to enjoy it, everything begins to fade. Let me ask you, would you prefer to possess $20 million and experience illness, fatigue, and discomfort daily? Or would you rather have merely $1 million but feel energetic, robust, and full of life? Most people, upon careful consideration, would opt for the latter. Yet, curiously, many of us live as though we are pursuing the former. Here is the positive news. You don't need to revolutionize your entire existence to feel improved. You don't need to become a long-distance runner or adopt a stringent dietary regimen overnight. Commence with small steps. Begin by walking a bit more each day, by opting for water over sugary drinks, by stretching in the morning, or by enrolling in a local exercise program tailored for individuals of your age group. Even light resistance training under supervision can achieve remarkable results for your equilibrium, vitality, and autonomy. This isn't about shedding pounds or trying to recapture youth. It's about preserving your independence. It's about being capable of engaging with your grandchildren, traveling without discomfort, and awakening with energy instead of weariness. Your body is the vessel for the life you desire. And akin to any vessel, it requires consistent attention. It needs upkeep. It needs care. So look after yourself. Schedule that medical consultation you've been postponing. Take that initial stroll around your neighborhood. Prepare one nutritious meal this week, just one. Because health isn't about attaining flawlessness, it's about building momentum. And the optimal time to begin is now. 6. Stop being concerned about others' opinions. The sixth thing to relinquish after the age of 60 is this: cease worrying about what other people think. Now let's be frank. For the majority of our lives, we have been influenced by the expectations of others. We endeavor to be the exemplary parent, the dedicated employee, the dependable friend. We adhere to the established norms. We do what is anticipated. But at a certain juncture, you must inquire, for whom am I living now? I once had a client, a woman in her mid-60s, who had a passion for art. Throughout her life, she had dreamed of enrolling in a painting course. But she wavered. She expressed, "What if I lack talent? What if people consider it frivolous at my age?" Do you know my response to her? "So what if they do?" She enrolled in the course, and it transformed everything. Not because she achieved fame as an artist, but because she finally granted herself permission to do something solely for her own fulfillment. No apologies, no justifications. Here is a potent concept I want you to retain. The older you become, the more liberty you acquire to disregard the surrounding clamor. You wish to wear vibrant attire? Do so. You wish to travel unaccompanied? Do so. You wish to decline family functions that leave you feeling drained? You possess that prerogative. And this is not about being discourteous or self-absorbed. This is about living authentically, so you do not reflect on your life with remorse. There is a book authored by a hospice caregiver named Brenda Corwin. In it, she recounts the foremost regrets of individuals at the end of their lives. Do you know what the primary regret was? "I wish I'd had the fortitude to live a life true to myself, not the life others expected of me." Allow that to resonate deeply, because when you exist according to others' criteria for an excessive duration, you begin to vanish from your own existence. So today, alleviate the pressure, relinquish the compulsion to impress, articulate your true thoughts, engage in what you love, and permit yourself to be perceived, fully, candidly, wonderfully, just as you are. There is only one you, and it is never too late to be present in your own life. 7th, stop consuming messages of despair and negativity. The 7th thing to let go of after turning 60 is this: cease watching doom-laden content, at least not incessantly. Now, this particular point might take you by surprise. Let me be unambiguous. I am not advocating that you ignore reality. Remaining knowledgeable is crucial. Being cognizant of the world around you is integral to being a discerning individual. However, there is a distinction between staying informed and being emotionally overwhelmed. If you dedicate hours each day to news broadcasts, irrespective of the network, you might begin to feel as though the world is disintegrating. And that persistent tension, unease, and fear, it accumulates. It takes a toll on your body. It obscures your mental clarity. It deprives you of your tranquility. Here is something I frequently ask individuals. Have you ever encountered someone who proclaimed, "After viewing 3 hours of cable news nightly, I feel substantially better about life"? I haven't either, but I have met numerous people, scores of them, who shared that once they disengaged from the relentless news cycle, their psychological well-being improved, their spirits lifted, and they felt more optimistic, more engaged with the present, more at peace. You see, the majority of the news you consume is not engineered to enlighten you. It is engineered to capture your attention. And fear is a potent enticement. The question then becomes, is that where you wish to direct your focus? After 60, you begin to recognize that your attention is one of your most valuable assets, and you have the autonomy to decide where it is allocated. You can concentrate on what is flawed, or you can concentrate on what remains beautiful. Kindness still exists in the world. Good people are still performing good deeds. Music, laughter, learning, growth, and love still persist. So remain informed, certainly, but not at the expense of your serenity. Restrict your intake. Switch off the television when necessary. Opt for uplifting narratives. Read from sources that value your intellect, not just your apprehension. And ask yourself, has viewing this enabled me to take constructive action? Has it enhanced my life? Or is it merely making me feel powerless? Because after all the years you have lived, you deserve more than to be mired in fear. You deserve peace. You deserve joy. And you deserve to invest your energy in matters you can genuinely influence. 8th, stop overlooking your financial strategy, but also cease fixating on it. The 8th item to release after the age of 60 is this: stop disregarding your financial plan, but concurrently stop obsessing over it. This requires a delicate equilibrium. On one side, you have individuals who entirely sidestep their finances. They make statements such as, "It's too daunting," "I'll address it later," or "I don't even want to examine it." But here is the reality. Avoiding your financial strategy doesn't resolve the issue. It allows it to intensify unnoticed. After 60, it becomes even more critical to possess a lucid comprehension of your money's performance. What monthly income do you require? What occurs if your health status alters? Are you safeguarded against unforeseen events? You don't need to be a specialist, but you do require a plan, one that affords you peace of mind. Now, let me address the other extreme, the individuals who think solely about their finances. You're familiar with the type. Perhaps you are one. They scrutinize every dollar. They ponder, if I take a vacation, will that affect my tax situation? They postpone joy due to a spreadsheet. Herein lies the issue with that approach. You didn't save and invest merely to observe your figures on a display. You did it to live. So yes, consult with your advisor. Review your accounts. Ensure the fundamentals are addressed. But then release your grip. Allow your money to fulfill its intended purpose, to support your life, not to dictate it. A robust financial plan should instill in you the confidence to say yes, not a fear that keeps you immobilized. I once shared this with a client, and it entirely altered his viewpoint. The hallmark of an excellent retirement plan is not solely a substantial account balance. It is a life lived well. So cease avoiding your finances out of apprehension. Stop fixating on your finances out of anxiety, and begin utilizing your finances as an instrument to construct the life you desire, one joyful, deliberate decision at a time. Ninth, stop living as though you possess an infinite amount of time. The ninth and ultimate thing to let go of after turning 60 is this. Stop conducting your life as if you have forever. Now, I state this not to alarm you, but to encourage you to live more completely. Because by the time we arrive at our 60s, most of us have been affected by loss. Perhaps you have lost a parent, a sibling, a friend. Maybe someone you cherish deeply is no longer present. And in those serene, hallowed moments of sorrow, we are reminded of something we frequently overlook. Life is not boundless. We all comprehend this theoretically, yet we still postpone things. We await the ideal moment. We persuade ourselves we will eventually get to it. But the truth is, you never truly ascertain how much time you have remaining. And that renders today exceptionally valuable. I sometimes pose a straightforward yet impactful question to my clients. If you knew with absolute certainty that this was your final year, what would you do differently? Whom would you contact? What would you articulate? What would you cease to endure? And what would you finally commence doing? Most individuals can respond to that question very swiftly, but then they revert to living in the same manner they always have. So let me ask you, what is preventing you from doing some of that now? You do not need to await a medical diagnosis or a crisis to awaken. You can awaken today with a full appreciation of just how transient and exquisite life truly is. You can extend forgiveness to someone. You can begin that journal. You can reserve the trip, enroll in the class, cultivate the garden, or express "I love you" before the opportunity passes. And no, you cannot accomplish everything in a single day, but you can make a start. Because the objective is not to live in dread of mortality. The objective is to live with reverence for life, to honor this singular, vibrant, irreplaceable life that you still possess. You are present. You are breathing. You have today. And that is sufficient cause to cease waiting and commence genuinely living. So there you have it. 9 things to relinquish after the age of 60. Not because you have made any errors, but because you have earned the prerogative to live more unencumbered, more freely, more purposefully. Letting go is not synonymous with surrendering. It is about creating room. Room for serenity, for happiness, for being present, room for what genuinely holds importance now. Let's briefly recall what we have addressed. Release saving out of fear. Release spending without joy. Release trading your time for money when your time holds greater value. Release postponing the experiences that make you feel vibrant. Release neglecting your health, your most significant asset. Release worrying about others' opinions. Release the incessant barrage of negativity. Release financial apprehension, but do not disregard your plan. And above all, release the misconception that you have an unlimited amount of time. Because the reality is, you have this present moment. And that is adequate to begin.